Okay, so here's something kind of wild. China just had its biggest trade surplus ever. Like the first country in history to export more than $1 trillion worth of stuff in a single year. That's insane. And yet, at the exact same time, every major company you can name is quietly trying to get out of China. Not fully, not dramatically, but enough. Apple is making iPhones in India now. Samsung just built one of the world's biggest phone factories near Delhi. And the IMF thinks China's growth could fall to around 3% by the 2030s, which, for context, is less than a third of what it was just a decade ago. So something is shifting. And the question is, who benefits? To understand where things are going, you kind of have to understand what went wrong first. For about 20 years, China's formula was dead simple. Cheap labor, massive scale, open global trade. And it worked spectacularly. GDP grew at an average of 10% a year through the 2000s. It lifted over 800 million people out of poverty. That is genuinely one of the most impressive economic stories in human history, and I don't think people give it enough credit. But that same success created the cracks. Wages have doubled. The average factory worker in China now earns around $9,000 a year, which is still way cheaper than the West, but expensive enough that the whole outsource it to China because it's cheap thing doesn't hit as hard anymore. And on top of that, China's population is actually shrinking in the working age bracket. It lost about 40 million workers aged 15 to 59 since 2010. That's a labor shortage in what used to be the world's most populous country. And then there's the property collapse. Developers like Evergrande defaulted, home sales crashed, and real estate, which made up nearly a quarter of China's GDP, went from an engine to a weight. So the US started cutting China off from advanced semiconductors. Europe slapped tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, and every big multinational quietly adopted what they now call a China Plus One strategy. Keep China, but build a backup somewhere else just in case. And the final piece? Automation. Robots got cheaper. Tasks that needed hundreds of workers now run on a few machines. So even if Chinese labor was still cheap, companies can just build closer to home and automate the rest. Put it all together, rising wages, shrinking workforce, a property collapse, and a world actively trying to reduce its China dependence, and the model that built China's miracle has basically run its course. So who fills that gap? India has 371 million people aged 15 to 29. A digital payment system that pulled hundreds of millions into the formal economy almost overnight, and government incentives that are already working. Foxconn assembles iPhones in Tamil Nadu, and India produced nearly $60 billion worth of phones last year alone. Apple wants most of its US-bound iPhones coming from India by 2026. And India isn't just competing on cheap labor, it's competing on scale, stability, and a domestic market of 1.4 billion people that can actually buy what it makes. That combination, export potential plus a massive consumer base, is something Vietnam, Mexico, and Indonesia simply can't match. Is it perfect? No. Manufacturing is still only 13% of GDP. Ports are congested, power cuts happen, and most growth has stayed in cities, not reaching the millions who still need real factory jobs. Those problems are real, and they're not going away overnight. But here's what makes India different from every other country chasing this opportunity. It's not just a low-cost alternative. It's a long-term bet on a country that's building digital infrastructure, training engineers, and reforming its systems all at the same time. That's a very different story than simply being the next cheapest option in line. But in a world desperate for a supply chain that doesn't blow up every time there's a tariff war, India is exactly what companies are looking for. The window is open right now. Whether India takes it, that's the actual question.